weekly close live here on the Passive Income Podcast. Welcome, Joseph, my co-host. What do you know, Joe? How are you this week?
I'm not gonna lie to you, Dave. I'm kind of bored.
You're bored
We were.
because,
What is there? There's not a whole lot to talk. I guess we can go ahead and we can start getting this over with. How's the weather, Dave?
yeah, well, we're gonna have to talk about the weather because there just was not a lot of earnings reported this week. It's been a mixed bag of weather. It's starting to warm up here a little bit, but then we've had earlier this week there was quite a rain and windstorm with some wet snow still, and you're like, come on, guys, it's early April. Hey, Mother Nature, give the snow a rest, right? And um, I do think that it's going to, obviously it's going to warm up here real soon, real fast. And then also, not, I guess maybe, I don't know, is this sort of somewhat weather related that Monday, this big solar eclipse thing is happening? And yeah, that's, I think I'm like right in the line of the totality. So that's kind of interesting, I guess. I don't know. How's the weather in Greenville, North Carolina,
Um,
while I get some stuff going here?
it is bipolar at best. We've had a couple
Polar.
days, and of course, I'm sorry to do this to you, Dave. I'm going to talk strictly in Fahrenheit. We've had a couple days in the high 70s, high 80s, and then the next day it's 55. Um,
Interesting.
so I'm starting to worry. I thought we were hitting springtime. I was complaining to Outdoor Finance about this the other day. Um, but I hope we hit springtime a few weeks ago. I was telling you, I went ahead and I planted my spring garden. And the flowers I planted are loving this. They're fine with it. They look great. But the more food plants, I'm afraid I planted too early. And at least a couple of them I'm pretty sure are going to die just because of the stress.
Okay, I'm gonna have one more comment there about not the weather, but and before I get into the closing numbers for the week, it's really odd. Like Canada is so messed because we are officially metric, but because we're so close to the US, we use a lot of imperial numbers as well. So quite honestly, like my thermostat in my house is set to say 67, 68 Fahrenheit, and that's very comfortable. But if you told me it was 67 or 68 degrees outside, I have no idea what that means. It's like, what? So with that
Um,
said, I'm going to get right into the closing numbers. Here we are on yahoofinance.ca, starting as we always do with the S&P TSX Composite, the Toronto Stock Exchange, closing this week at 22,264. And if you look down here at the 52-week range, and actually the day range, so that was today, 22,316. And so I believe that is an all-time high. Please, if I'm mistaken, someone in the chat, please correct me. So that's where we were with the TSX composite this week. Jumping right over to the S&P 500. Now, this is obviously on yahoofinance.ca. As I've mentioned in the past, you have to watch the whether it's in Canadian or US dollars. This is in USD. The S&P 500 at 5,204, and off there that high from a week ago of 5,264, but still a very good showing for the S&P. This has been a very good year so far for the markets all around, as we know. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closing the week at 38,904, again in USD. Was this last week that it closed at, or last week it was up to that 39,889, so close to the actually 904. No, sorry, 38 is below 39. 38,889 was so close to that 40,000 mark.
we're getting
And
there,
where do you
slowly
think
but
we are
surely.
on Canada to USD?
So I'm actually going to say the U.S. dollar went on a bit of a little. You can see it kind of. Well, that's the daily chart. Went on a little bit of a tear this week. So we're down to about 73.5 cents. Yahoo Finance still rounding up, but
There's the 5-day chart.
we're yeah 73, a little
There's
more
the
than
1 month
73 and a half
chart. There's the
cents.
6 month chart. And again, this is showing the Canadian dollar, so the Canadian dollar being in the green. And it looks like the high was around the end of December of 2023.
I mean,
at
don't be
just shy
fooled.
of 76
Yep.
cents. So it's been an interesting run. Actually, not overly interesting. It's just kind of been fluctuating in that same price range, right?
I mean, to be fair, I think most currencies aren't very exciting. I mean, you're trading if you're trading currencies, you're trading fractions of cents.
Right. Yeah. Crude oil. Crude oil on the New York Mercantile in USD closing the week at $86.73. I'm sure that has to be the per barrel price. That sounds correct.
Yep. Yeah,
And
it's been on quite the. I mean, as you can see right there with the 6 month chart, it's been quite on quite the run up lately, especially year to date.
right.
We're gonna see, at least here. I'm sure you are the same. Gas price has been creeping up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then one of my favorite topics, I guess, kind of, sort of. This is in Canadian dollars, Bitcoin, with the weekly close live where Bitcoin never closes. But in Canadian dollars, Bitcoin at just over 92,000. Amazing because what is a Bitcoin? What does it do?
Well, if you scroll Twitter for 15 minutes, your question will be, what doesn't it do? Like I saw somebody comment. I'm sure you've seen all the squatters' rights things the last like week or so.
Oh my
I've seen
goodness, the
so many
US has absolutely
comments.
gone crazy with squatters' rights. That's a whole other that's
Well, let's not say the U.S. because squatters' rights is a state by state issue. Some states have gone
right.
crazy
Okay,
with it.
yep, fair enough.
But I've seen multiple comments and people being like, "Bitcoin fixes this," or like this. What some people want or what some people are pushing for, because I actually like legitimately talked to a couple people about this because I was like, "How? There's no
Yeah.
way Bitcoin fixes this." And they're like, "Well,
No,
if
Bitcoin,
you
it's
if you
like
make
that's what it really is. It's a roof over your head. That's how it fixes it. I don't
Well, I was going to say is what some people proposed, and I guess this is kind of tokenized real estate to an extent, is you make every acre of land or every plot of land into like an NFT, and then whoever owns that land is imprinted in the blockchain. And I was like, you guys are doing too much work. Nobody needs that. And also, if someone squats in your house, what am I going to do? Walk in and be like, that's not what the blockchain says. I don't think they already don't respect your local sheriff. I don't think they're respecting the blockchain.
Oh, I'm gonna leave it at that. And the Nasdaq. I don't know why the Nasdaq on this feed isn't over there with the other ones. It should be over there with the Dow and S&P and TSX. But the Nasdaq Composite again, USD closing the week at 16,248. Looks like it was a strong week for the Nasdaq. Tech stocks did. I'm guessing tech stocks did well this week.
They
Actually,
did.
sorry, I'm on the 1 day chart. Where the 5 day chart? Oh, I lied. They did not do well this week.
Apparently, I mean, it's down 1%. Oh, you know what? Let's fill a little more time. Did you see the market crash this week?
uh, I saw your tweet about it where it was like, "Oh, the market is down. Twitter is like sell
Yeah,
everything," and like meanwhile, the S&P 500 is like down by like half of a percent or something.
yeah. I was like 1.05%, but like so many accounts went for the like. Wait a minute, what happened? I'm like, really, really? We lose 1% in an hour and it's over.
Right.
Um,
And of course, I'd like to get to our one viewer in London, the FTSE 100 in GBP, which would be Great British Pounds, closing the week at 7,911 quid. I just love to any opportunity to use the word quid. The 52-week range was over 8,000. I have no idea what the all-time high of the FTSE may or may not be. And
I would
obviously, we're going to shout out that
assume
one Japanese viewer who is here every single week, priced in Japanese yen, closing the week at 38,992, and its 52-week range at 41,000. It's just over 41,000, 41,087. So those are your closing numbers for the week here on the Weekly Close Live. And we're going to get into talking about the earnings reports of this week.
yeah.
Or are we?
I mean, like we at least have to pretend that is the like. I'm gonna go ahead and say if you've made it this far in, this is where a lot of the excitement is. We got a couple things. Dave has actually been working on a backflip at the end. Stay tuned for that. But more importantly, come back next week. Next week is going to be a lot of fun. Next 2 weeks, we've got financials on top of financials on top of financials.
Yeah, the next 2
Which
weeks are going to be a lot better than this week. Basically, I'm just trying to get to Wednesday so I can talk a lot about BlackBerry and the trip down memory lane with BlackBerry. And as I mentioned to you before we began recording, I'm even going to talk about the NHL team, the Pittsburgh Penguins, in my BlackBerry backstory. So, with that said, I'm going to bring up the Monday screen and we'll see if there's anything here. I don't know, man. You got anything for Monday? There's a lot of companies on Monday. So, I think Monday is the most companies from again, shout out to Dairyland Div for me borrowing all of these graphics from him every morning on Twitter.
I got to go back through my profile real quick. Maybe was it no? Was it not Monday? Well, I was saying, what was the day I called you out with like a Dave you haven't heard of?
Oh, that we're not. That's Thursday, where you're like, you haven't
Wait,
heard of this
really?
company, and I'm
That
like,
was yesterday.
that was yesterday, man.
Has it been that kind of week? Okay, yeah, I have not heard of a single one of these companies.
No,
I'm assuming that Zomedica is something with
I
medical
think I've heard of
devices.
Pioneer Power Solutions,
Have not.
and I don't know Escalade. That sounds interesting, I guess. Jaguar Health. Sigma Lithium, no. I mean, nothing on here, right? Like just oh, NYC, New York City REIT. I've never heard of it, but I'm suddenly intrigued.
I mean, we know they pay a dividend.
Well, I would think New York City real estate, well, we all know it's probably one of the most expensive real estate places in the world, right? So I'm suddenly intrigued by that. We should have looked that one up this week, but honestly,
Yeah,
I'm just noticing it now because this whole week has just been such a what do you call it? Like mosh posh of nothingness.
actually, New York. Well, maybe not. They're up 7% today. They actually do not pay a dividend because they're unprofitable. I was
Oh, a
wrong.
REIT that doesn't pay a dividend. That
Yeah,
is
they
I
went
I
live
I
for
thought I thought
trading.
REITs had to they did because they're not profitable. I was gonna say
Yes.
the REITs have to pay dividend. How do you have real estate in New York City and you're not profitable?
Well, you want to make it even worse? They're down 97% since they went live in 2020.
Okay,
They
I'm done with
they
Monday. We're moving to Tuesday. Let's go to Tuesday.
they're going to be a penny stock. They were a penny stock.
Okay, Tuesday. Did Paychex report earnings on Tuesday? Because that was a thing
Barely.
last week where they were supposed to report last week, and they said we're going to report next week. If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken, is that correct?
you are dead correct. Yeah, because it wasn't like the Bitcoin ATM people who we talked about who just did it. Paychex actually told us they were moving it, which shout out. Also, shout out everyone at Paychex. I've said this last week too. I work with Paychex so much in my 9 to 5. If you work at Paychex, you make my life so much easier than some of your competitors. I don't think I'm at liberty to say which of your competitors that I don't like, but it's Paylocity. Just saying.
Right.
Um,
Now, are they similar to like an ADP type of like payment system for employees at a company?
spot on.
Okay.
Um, I'm also going to shout out Paychex. I like you guys a lot better than Gusto because your integration actually works. And if you're nerd enough to
Right.
know what that means, hit up me in DMs because I'll nerd about this all week long. Either way, they pretty much hit EPS expectations on the spot. Slightly missed revenue. I had it written down. Yeah, $1.38 a share earnings per share. Slightly missed revenue. Yeah, came in at 1.44 billion, which is still quite a lot of money. Stock's
Right.
pretty profitable. I mean, I think most of these payroll software companies. I mean, I hate to say it, but like, man, how do you not be profitable? But
Right.
yeah, they're doing pretty well. Stock's only up about 0.5% this week, which whatever, 2% in the last month, and about 3% year to date. So they are kind of trailing the S&P 500, which oh well, but they also pay a nice 3% dividend. So maybe not a
Okay.
growth play,
Yeah.
maybe a dividend play. which maybe I should go right into ticker play. Old Dave and Buster's right there.
So here's the research I did for the week for Tuesday is I Googled Dave and Buster's Canada because I had no idea if there's any here or not. And so the extent of my research found that yes, there are 2 locations in the GTA, the Greater
I
Toronto
was gonna
area.
say, isn't there a Niagara
Sorry.
Falls one, like right there by Margaritaville, which is
Uh,
on the Canadian side?
I honestly, when I Googled it, one came up, I believe, in Oakville, which is, which is sort of a well, it is its own city, but west of Toronto, still in the Greater Toronto area, or I would consider it the Greater Toronto area. And then one came up in the northern part of the city as well, which is again sort of its own city, but still part of the GTA. So there could be one in Niagara Falls as well. I have no idea. Just all I'm saying is my Google search only turned up those 2.
Well, I could also be totally wrong. I've never been, so don't quote me
I've
on
never
that.
been to any Dave and Buster's because
Um,
honestly, they do sound fun. They look fun. The whole idea of it is fun. And honestly, I even when I was doing this quote unquote research of Googling Dave and Buster's Canada, I went to their website and it was like, oh, they have like obviously, birthday parties and stuff for kids and games and all that. But then they were like, oh, like adult get-togethers and business what do you like team building
yeah.
sort of events, right? So it's like, oh, they're trying to actually capture more than just like the Chuck E. Cheese is very much just focusing on like the younger demographic, right? Whereas it looks like Dave and Buster's is trying to like be a little bit more broad. I don't tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, I've only been a couple of times to different Dave and Buster's, and it's been going on 10 years since the last time I went to one. So don't nobody come for my throat. Um, I'd say after dark, it's definitely a an adult Chuck E. Cheese.
Different experience. Oh,
Yeah,
an
I
adult
mean,
Chuck E. Cheese.
well, and basically what I mean by adult Chuck E. Cheese, I mean there aren't like poles and women coming down from the ceiling or anything, but it's a very different vibe, a very different environment. So like, hey, if you like skee ball but don't like having to fight through crowds of 4-year-olds, Dave and Buster's. Also, Chuck E. Cheese only serves beer, and I'm pretty sure Dave and Buster's has a full bar.
Oh,
And they did slightly miss EPS. They are profitable, which is kind of surprising. And also, the thing that surprised me, Dave and Buster's up 21% year to date as the market closed today.
interesting.
I didn't realize they were killing it like that. I kind of assumed they were just another one of those that they're kind of there, and we all like it's like how the Washington Post is publicly traded. We or New York Times. We all know, but we never really think about it.
Yeah, it's there, but yeah. And Cal-Maine Foods, anything, or am I skipping to Wednesday?
I should know more about Cal-Maine Foods. I really should, but I don't. So
Yeah, I've
yeah.
already skipped to Wednesday.
Well,
Anything before open, or do I get into my whole BlackBerry nostalgia
can I get into one
rant?
more Tuesday thing before we get into Wednesday earnings?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I forgot about. You
Tisk
want to
tisk.
talk about Tesla delivery numbers on Tuesday?
Yes, Tesla delivery
Please do.
numbers. Um,
I'm gonna I'll close that for a minute, bring you back up into the screen, and let's talk
hello.
about Tesla.
So yeah,
Tesla, Tesla, Tesla.
Tesla delivery numbers not looking great. Um, Overall deliveries came in at like 386,000, which is especially bad when the lowest official estimate for deliveries was 411. Average was about 440, 450, so they missed by about 60,000 deliveries, which is
Is
huge.
that are those global numbers or just the US?
Those are global.
Oh wow.
Um, which, if you look at it overall, they delivered 8.5% less vehicles than they did in Q1 2023, which is their first year over year drop since the pandemic hit in 2020. And also, production was down, I think, 1.7, 1.8% year over year, which was also kind of concerning. And it kind of seems to be there's two ways you can go home and take this based on what I saw online. I'm not going to openly pick a side here. At least I'm going to try not to. The Bulls are basically saying, "Who cares? Demand EV market demand. You can't deny this. EV to market demand across, especially the U.S., is so far down. Like
Yeah.
we're looking back now, and a lot of people really overestimated how quickly the average consumer would adopt an EV. Um, and that's kind of hurting pure play stocks like Tesla. And if Rivian's laid up in the hospital, but they're still alive somehow.
Right.
Kind of in
And
the same
before we
boat.
started before we went live, I was mentioning to you when we were talking about the EV segment that I believe it's Ford that just announced
Yep.
recently for one of their Ontario plants to uh, completely postpone production for a few years yet. I can't remember the headline that I saw, but yeah, they just said, okay, not even going to
Yeah.
bother making any. I
Y-
probably there again going back to Oakville and Oshawa have had for my entire lifetime, 50 years and longer than that, I'm sure, where Ford has had these two major plants in. Again, those are both kind of the Greater Toronto area. Oshawa is quite a bit east of Toronto, but I guess I would still kind of consider it maybe part of the GTA. But so yeah, I agree with you 110% that EV adoption is not where anyone thought it was going to be.
which is actually interesting because going like what you said about Ford didn't specifically say we're giving up on EVs. Ford said we're taking resources away from EVs to put into hybrids because people are loving hybrids right now. I mean,
Right.
they're not replacing gasoline cars or straight gasoline anytime soon, but comparatively, hybrids are getting the adoption. Um, so yeah, bears say who cares? EV market's just down; it'll bounce back. Plus, people don't want to finance an already expensive car at a high interest rate because interest rates are historical highs in the U.S. right now.
Yeah.
Bears are saying it's the beginning of the end of Tesla, and people don't like Elon Musk anymore. Pick a side. I have
Yeah.
an opinion that I will not share here.
All right. I'm not going to prod you for that opinion, to be honest, because I'm just going to let it go at that. I'm going
We're
to get into Wednesday here, and uh, how are your skinny jeans?
so here's a fun fact. I work from home. I'm not even sure that I own jeans anymore. I can't remember the last time I've had to put on like real like I hate to say this, I really do because it's gonna make me sound terrible, but like man, like even over the winter when it got really cold, all I really had left were shorts. That was all I wore, and who cared? Because when I leave the house once a week, God, I sound like a hermit.
Oh, but I know you're heading out to San Francisco soon. Shout out to
I
you
am
and the boys over there at Marketplace on your upcoming trip out there. That's going to be a fun one to watch.
very
Before I
excited.
get into my whole BlackBerry stories, actually, I probably have so many BlackBerry stories. Anything else you want to talk about either before or after close on Wednesday? Because I'm gonna take up a chunk of time here with
No,
BlackBerry.
but please do. I think we talked about this in Twitter comments. I never had a BlackBerry. I am probably only like 2 or 3 years too young to have missed the BlackBerry craze. Um, because like I remember like I think I told you I had my older brothers had one, my older cousins had one, but I was
Yeah.
definitely just slightly too young to really know what was going on. So please educate a youngin.
Yeah, so I don't even know where to begin the story, but BlackBerry was this darling Canadian company, total success story from the late 90s and through the early 2000s. And as we know, BlackBerry was a huge part of popular culture, in movies and TV shows and everywhere else. It was like it wasn't, not my cell phone or my smartphone. It was like, oh, I need my BlackBerry. And I was even earlier, I might be able to find it again, just reading about like even Barack Obama, obviously former U.S. President, more or less addicted to his BlackBerry. So, just sort of an incredible story and run of how the company got started in a small Canadian town west of Toronto. Uh, Windsor is the Canadian city on the border with Detroit. So in this small Canadian city, sort of between Toronto and Windsor and Kitchener Waterloo, and they just, this company became world famous in the early 2000s, right? Like everybody had a BlackBerry. Um, so and the stock ran up like crazy too. I remember that stock going absolutely insane for several years. This is back when it was still called Research in Motion, or RIM, was the ticker symbol back there, RIM. And yeah, so I also mentioned this to you. I'm gonna actually, and I think I said it earlier when we went live. I'm gonna tie in the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Please do.
So the CEO of BlackBerry, his name was Jim Basile, and Jim Basile wanted more than anything else in his life to own an NHL team. Now, so around the time BlackBerry was sort of at its peak, I want to say, let's say 2006 or 2007. Well, at that same point in time, the Pittsburgh Penguins were struggling financially, like as professional sports teams do, right? You have you know, and so he had put a bid into the NHL and to the Pittsburgh Penguins to buy the team. And basically everything was going well, and it seemed like he was going to get the team. Now, what he did behind the NHL's back, and oh, he's yeah, I'll try to end the story with this. So what he did behind the NHL's back, so there's a uh, a stadium, NHL ready stadium in Hamilton, Ontario. It's called Cops Coliseum. It's still there. It was back there way back in the early 90s, and Hamilton has always wanted to get an NHL team. The problem with Hamilton is that they're literally halfway between Toronto and Buffalo. Toronto and Buffalo both have NHL teams. Toronto and Buffalo do not want a team in between them to compete for fans, for merchandise, for cash, basically, right? So Jim Basile wanted to buy Cops Coliseum and behind the NHL's back, move the Pittsburgh Penguins to Hamilton. Needless to say, this did not go over well with the NHL or Pittsburgh or the fans in Pittsburgh or like anybody really. And so that's that's sort of the backstory on how the history of how BlackBerry ties into the NHL. And yeah, so basically once the NHL found out that his plan was to move the team, and I should also say during this time when Pittsburgh was struggling financially, the Pittsburgh Penguins were struggling massively financially. They actually had to give former NHL star Mario Lemieux part ownership of the team to pay off his last contract. So to this day, Mario Lemieux still owns part of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And actually, back then, Mario Lemieux came out of retirement to be a draw so that they would sell tickets again. Now, this is also right around the time that they drafted Sidney Crosby. So I don't know how much you know about the NHL and NHL hockey players, but I'm sure you know who Mario Lemieux and Sidney Crosby are, right?
Sidney Crosby, yes. The first guy, no.
Oh my God. Are you alive? Do you live on this planet?
Dave, we just talked about how little I get out of the house. Don't make
Right,
me feel
right,
worse
right.
about it.
Okay, so basically, Mario Lemieux, you know who Wayne Gretzky is?
Oh, of course.
Okay, so if you know who Wayne Gretzky is, Mario Lemieux had health issues back in the 80s and 90s. He had cancer. He fought it. Anyways, if he didn't have those health issues, he would have been on the same level as Wayne Gretzky. And many hockey fans argue that even with the health issues, he was still on the same level as Wayne Gretzky. So you would have heard of him if not for those things, right? So that's a huge history of the Pittsburgh Penguins with Mario Lemieux being this, Hall of Fame superstar coming out of retirement to help save the team, him getting ownership of the team for them to be able to pay off his last contract, them getting Sidney Crosby all around this time that former BlackBerry CEO Jim Basile is trying to buy the team and move them to Hamilton. It was just like this, almost like a perfect storm of a gong show of a story, right? So that's my story of Blackberries and the NHL. But I also kind of want to get into just the nostalgia of actual Blackberries because I think I know I had at least two, maybe three of them. and I'm also the type of person that, you know how your phone contract goes for 2 or 3 years? Well, I'm the type of person that keeps my phone for 2 or 3 years after the contract is up. So I probably had, 3 Blackberries for close to 10 years. I definitely remember having the Torch, not pictured here, and I definitely remember having the Curve, and they were incredible phones. The only the biggest problem, and I had them, this picture doesn't show it because it's got that trackball, the new and improved trackball from later on, but the older Blackberries had literally just an absolutely horrible trackball. So this is actually on eBay where I found this picture where you can still buy this phone for 200 Canadian dollars. But yeah, if you not this trackball, but I'm sure many people watching, anybody in the chat, let us know how many times I had to have that trackball replaced. It was just it was other than iPhones, that was their biggest downfall, right? Yeah.
Sure.
So that's a whole
Uh,
lot of BlackBerry conversation and talk.
yeah, I like I said, I just missed the BlackBerry craze.
Yeah, it was honestly, they were really good phones. They even, to this day, what a smartphone does, back then, BlackBerry did a lot of it, right? Like, so and I mean, I get it when iPhones came out, BlackBerry, it was like the nail in the coffin, and BlackBerry was not ready to keep up and compete, which is unfortunate that they basically fell out of the smartphone industry. But the interesting thing is now, as we saw there, they're still reporting earnings, and so it's kind of like, well, the question is, what are they doing now?
According to
Everybody remembers the name
Google,
BlackBerry from the old BlackBerry smartphones, right? Like they were literally the original smartphone. And
hey,
so, what does BlackBerry do now?
according to Google cybersecurity, and I'm looking this up. Is somebody in the chat let me know? Did BlackBerry Kodak themselves?
When you say Kodak themselves, are you talking about the company Kodak from Rochester, New York? The code,
I
like,
I am. You know
okay.
what happened to Kodak, right?
Yeah, yeah, they basically didn't keep up with the times either,
Well,
and yeah,
well,
BlackBerry did kind of Kodak themselves.
Kodak was the first one to invent the digital camera, but they refused to release it because they were making so much money on film sales.
Right.
So I've heard before. I don't know how true this is. That BlackBerry could have been ahead of Apple. They just did not want to put the money in the touchscreen.
Yeah.
I've heard. Keyword have heard. Not financial advice.
So that sounds, pretty accurate. There is uh, a three-part documentary on CBC Gem. So CBC is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and Gem is like their free app. I watched the three-part documentary several months ago, so I'm assuming it is still there and that you could find it if you wanted to. And yeah, that's exactly what was portrayed in part 3 of the documentary, is that, when the iPhone came out and they were basically like, "Where's the keyboard?" Because obviously everybody remembers the keyboard on
Yeah.
BlackBerry, and so yeah, they just literally did not keep up with the times because they didn't think that people were going to adopt to the keyboard on the screen and having a full screen, as opposed to, the Blackberries were basically half the phone was the keyboard and the other half was the screen.
Yep.
And the big thing that I when iPhones came out, and to an extent, I guess Androids as well, they all of a sudden were a full screen phone, and then the keyboard came up sort of when you needed it, right? Whereas with the old Blackberries, the keyboard was just always there.
Well, see how that went for him.
Right? Okay. Are we done beating a dead horse to death with the Blackberries?
We've compared them to Kodak. I think we're done.
Thursday. This is when I knew we were getting into trouble this week. This is when I knew we were getting into trouble this week, and I guess that
Yes.
was today when I said, "Are we even going to do this week?
No.
Like, is there
Yeah,
anything to talk about?"
Dave, pop quiz. Who is angiodynamics?
I mean, Well, you asked me that yesterday on Twitter. Like, have you never heard of
Yeah,
angiodynamics?
come on, everyone's heard of angiodynamics. Come on,
I'm
dude.
sure everyone in the chat's going crazy right now about angiodynamics.
Oh, for sure. So, like, pop quiz, what do they do?
Please tell me you looked it up just so you have something to talk about right
Oh, I sure did.
now. Okay, angiodynamics. Looks like the ticker symbol is ANGO.
Stock's actually up 10% today, believe it or not.
Wow. Because we've
18
been hyping it up for 2 days on Twitter.
18% this week. Missed EPS estimates, negative 16 cents a share is what they came in. Negative 13 cents a share is what Wall Street expected. They are not profitable, but I couldn't find a good reason as to why they're still up. I'm assuming Pop Quiz Dave, I told you, what do they do? They are a medical device company. I'm assuming, yeah, they work specifically with cancer and different vascular diseases. Is what I wrote in my notes. Apparently they're like really good at it too, and like up there with like Boston Scientific leading the new wave of medical devices.
Okay,
Not
well,
financial
Boston
advice.
Scientific I have heard of, so that's interesting.
But yeah, I'm assuming it's a clinical trial. It's what's got them popping this week. I didn't actually look into it near enough. And I do want to say, full disclosure, I just picked a random stock off this list yesterday. I had not heard of them Wednesday morning.
Yeah, we hadn't heard of any of these, and it would basically became a little bit of a Twitter joke between you and I yesterday of like, what, you've never heard of these companies? And we are like, no, of course we haven't. No one has.
Simply Good's
Except for
known,
that
but
one Japanese viewer in the chat who's like, what do you mean?
Simply Good. I think they're the ones who make like Quest bars or like the Akin bars, maybe. I could be totally wrong about that, but pretty good stuff if that's them.
Simply Good. Yeah,
Yeah,
it definitely does. Well, it does say foods
they're definitely a
company, so
food
yeah.
company. I don't
Lindsay
remember.
Corporation, no idea. RPM, sounds cool.
Revolutions per minute.
Radius Recycling, okay, sure. Up here at the top, Lamb Weston, ConAgra. ConAgra actually does sound familiar to me. I think they might also be a food company.
Let's find out.
Yeah, please do.
ConAgra up 1.5% today. Yep, frozen and packaged foods.
Right, yeah. But honestly,
Based
other
out,
than that, not much to talk about for a lot of this week, to be
no,
honest.
not at all.
And then Friday today, I literally tweeted to you today. It's like, should we just skip this week? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like, is it Dr. Evil in the Austin Powers? Like, throw me a freaking bone here.
see, my mind went $1 million. Yeah, Greenberry. I'm looking them up right now. Up about 1.5% also today. Up percent on the week, 5% on the month, 21% on the year actually. Based out of Lake Oswego, Oregon.
Mm.
2% dividend yield. Founded in 1919, actually. Pretty old. What do they do? Oh, they do railroad equipment.
Oh, interesting.
That's pretty cool. They did beat earnings, $1.03 a share over $1.80, over 86 cents a share expected. I don't think they have like any volume. No, actually, wow. Almost 1 million shares in volume today. So that's pretty good.
That's a lot of volume.
I mean, I'm assuming it's because it's earnings day, but
right.
I'm
But that
curious
also
what their
means that
normal would be.
that also means that there's somebody out there that knows something about them, that knows a lot more about them than us.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's not saying much. You and I both heard of them today.
Literally today when I pulled this up, going, what? Yeah, and that gets us through the week. I'm going to get to Bitcoin over here on CoinMarketCap just to share the USD price. Of course, Bitcoin never closes, but I do find it fun to bring it up every week here on the Weekly Close Live. So it's, again, had quite a roller coaster ride this past week. currently at the 67,600 mark in USD. It was up over 70 again this week. It did look like one day this week a whale must have sold because it dropped immediately from that 70 or 71,000 down to, I believe, 65. Like,
Let's see.
it,
Wasn't that like April Fool's Day, April 1st at that?
yeah, it might have been. And then I don't know. Bitcoin is like a slow escalator up, and then what's the name of that ride at those theme parks where you go up and then they just drop you immediately? That's what Bitcoin is like
Uh,
when it decides to drop.
I don't know what the actual name of those are, but I know what you're talking about, and I refuse
Yeah.
to ride those. But
Yeah,
I'm
so
sure.
that is sort of a whole lot of what didn't happen this week here on the weekly close live.
I'm going to make this a
Oh, look,
running
it did it
thing.
right this time when I closed. Oh, because I stopped sharing it completely. It got you
Uh,
back to nice.
Bit Depot, who we talked about last Monday, has still not reported earnings.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll keep
I
an
don't.
eye on them just for fun.
They're going to get. I'm calling it now. They're going. Well, actually, no. They did. They
Did they
wait a
what?
minute. Did they? They might have actually reported earnings last week,
Oh, okay.
and my algo just did an update. Um, yeah, according to this, according to their official website, here it is last Monday. I have called them out for no reason.
Yeah,
And they
because
put
they were
100.
supposed to report last Monday, and we didn't have the numbers, so you were
They
calling them out. But now
I
you're seeing
was,
that
but
they
they
did
sure
report
did.
last Monday.
Yeah, so real quick, I'm going to explain this a little bit. We use a data provider at Marketplace who is I do all my data and research marketplace.com. I am a company man.
Yeah, shout out
Um
to Marketplace and the Marketplace app. You guys are doing
um
great over there.
we're trying, but our data provider, they try their best is what I'm going to say. Like our pricing data is top of the line. Our trading data is top of the line. But when it comes to things like earnings or even earnings dates, they try their best.
Right. That's okay. That's all good.
I don't want to sell them too short because they do a lot for us, but
Right.
there's a lot they don't do. So either way,
I'm going to give a quick shout out here. Receive a free passive income posse. Turn that cash register around. Coffee mug with any purchase over 100 Canadian dollars before taxes and shipping at buyinvestingshirts.com. Use code word posse for a 5% discount on your purchase. Link in the description. Joseph, how much is 100 Canadian dollars?
$73.56 USD.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right. And before we log off, because I think we knew this week's episode was going to be shorter than the others, but we're actually getting back to where we said we would be, the 30 to 40 minute mark. We seem to
Yeah,
been going longer the last few weeks. The over under on the viewership, and keep in mind we're viewing to YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and X, Twitter. Over under 50 viewers this week. What do you think?
let's see here. So I actually have our Twitter pulled up right now. So I'm cheating. I see we have 36 on Twitter.
Oh wow,
Uh,
really?
and I see hello. Oh, I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Hello, person in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, face green smiling.
Yep. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I am not going to try to pronounce your username. So I'm going to
Yexote.
say
I'm gonna go Exote.
that makes a lot of sense. I
I'm,
I,
I'm
I
going with
agree
it.
with that. I'm going to say 44.
Yeah, I guess all 36 viewers are on Twitter and a couple
Uh,
more on YouTube. We're just at
37
just
now.
went up to 39 as we're logging off, of course, right? Now, of course, like I've said to you every week, I buy you a pool every week. That's
You
no
do.
problem. I can afford that. But to actually start paying you the 10 Canadian dollars, I've said 1,000 viewers, but I actually need those viewers on YouTube where they may pay me money.
Oh, that's right. You don't have X monetization yet.
No, because my tweets just aren't good enough. Nobody wants to see my tweets apparently.
I was thinking about you. I commented under. I commented under one of Tom the Frugal Gay's posts that last or this week. Shout out Tom the Frugal Gay, phenomenal person, probably my favorite person on the internet. Sorry, Dave.
Okay.
Um,
Tom's a great guy. I agree.
he really is. But my comment under his post got like 400,000 views. I may be over exaggerating. See if I can find it.
Wow.
And I was like, man, and Dave can't get monetized because you have like 3x the following that I do.
Yeah.
How much did I get? Okay, 344,000 views on a comment. And I was like, yep. I don't pay for the blue check, so
Yeah.
Dave will pay for the pool, but not my blue check.
That's right. That's right. Just need more people to comment and watch and subscribe on YouTube, because YouTube is where the best creator platform for money is. So,
oh, for sure. It's why Jimmy Beast post here first.
right? Yeah. Alrighty. Another great week. Well, I don't want to say that. It's been another great conversation with you. I'm glad I did get to take a little trip down memory lane with BlackBerry and tell not the whole BlackBerry story of the of the sideways shenanigans of what Jim Basile was trying to do with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But yeah, that's kind of been the week, right?
It really has. Next week, though, I mean, if we want to do a little look ahead, we got the WD-40 company, which I'm actually kind of interested in. PriceSmart, Delta, Applied Digital. Who else we got? Constellation Brands. Dave and I will drink Modelo's in honor if they beat earnings. I might honestly just do that anyway because I like Modelo. CarMax, the Children's Place. I don't actually know what that is. JP
Yeah, so
Morgan,
it's not
Wells
just
Fargo,
it's not just
Progressive,
next week;
BlackRock,
it's the whole
Citigroup.
rest of April, where I believe every week is going to be a lot more entertaining and exciting
for
here on the
sure.
Weekly Close Live.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, this whole earnings, it's a 90-day cycle. You wrap it up, then you start over again. And I
Right.
think next week is when the cycle starts again. So we're gonna have 6 or 8 more weeks of good times rolling. Then we're gonna be having talks like this again.
Awesome. Well, with that said, I think we're going to end it there. Joseph, thank you again so much for
Of course.
coming on and being the co-host here every single Friday at 5:30 Eastern Daylight Time. And we'll be back again next for an exciting episode.
Yeah, we will see you all then. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you guys for watching. Very happy that you all showed up. And yeah, we'll see you again soon. If you are watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. Any of the other platforms, hit the follow button. Thanks, guys and girls.